Okay, let's dive into this explainer and completely solve a massive bottleneck for IT support teams. I'm talking about the absolute nightmare of manually pasting tokens and hard-coded URLs just to reproduce a single bug. Look, if you've ever felt that absolute panic of a 3 a.m. PagerDuty alert or, the sheer frustration of hunting down a production API key while a customer is literally waiting on a live support ticket, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to transform your Postman workspace from a messy, manual, copy-paste job into a totally streamlined, automated troubleshooting machine. And to make this super practical, we'll be working through a sample REST API using a Postman public workspace so you can just follow right along with me. Let's get into it. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the hard-coded URL problem. Then, setting up Postman environments. Third, mastering that variable syntax. Fourth, we'll break down collection versus environment variables. And finally, we'll wrap up with a real-world troubleshooting scenario. All right, section 1, the hard-coded URL problem, or as we all know it, environment drift. An Auth0 community user recently hit the nail on the head. They wrote, for a 2 to 3 dev setup, it gets a bit messy over time, mainly around tokens, shared environments, and keeping everything in sync. And man, that perfectly captures the universal pain point of environment drift. When your API client relies on manual token generation, everyone regenerating their own tokens and manually dropping them into requests, your environments drift apart so fast. Instead of actually testing the customer issue, your team is wasting precious time just trying to get the workspace to function at all. It's that classic, well, it works on my machine trap, right?
But the fix here is simple and honestly profound. We are moving from that rigid, messy, hard-coded URL string on the left, where you literally have to manually erase staging and type out production every single time the context changes, to a clean, dynamic variable string on the right. By just replacing the hard-coded domain with a variable, that exact same request can be reused across any server or context without editing a single character of the request itself. It is a real game changer.
Moving on to section 2, setting up Postman environments, which is really your foundation for different contexts. By creating distinct environments for development, staging, and production, you essentially transform from a manual URL paster into a highly efficient troubleshooter. So what is an environment in Postman? It's simply a set of one or more variables that you can reference when sending your requests, kind of like a dynamic configuration container. You store your reusable settings here, like base URLs and auth tokens, which totally eliminates the tedious need to manually edit URLs or swap headers when you shift from, say, testing a bug in staging to verifying it in production. And creating one is incredibly easy. If you're following along in our Postman public workspace, you can actually try this with our sample REST API right now. Just click the Environment Selector dropdown. It lives right up there in the top right corner of your screen. Hit that little Add Plus icon, give it a clear name like staging, and then simply add your variables into the key value table. It takes literally seconds to set up, but it's going to save you countless hours down the line. Okay, pause here, because this is the absolutely critical security step you need to remember. When you add those variables, you're going to see 2 columns, initial value and current value. The most important thing to understand is that while the initial value syncs across your team's shared workspace, the current value stays securely local on your machine. It does not sync to the Postman cloud. You absolutely must keep your secrets local. Put your sensitive API keys, temporary user tokens, and passwords only in that current value column. This ensures you aren't accidentally leaking production credentials to everyone who has access to the workspace. All right, section 3, mastering the variable syntax using double curly braces. Listen, if you remember only one thing from this entire explainer, make it this: the double curly brace syntax. It is the undeniable secret sauce for making your requests dynamic. Whenever Postman sees a word wrapped in these double curly braces, it basically pauses, looks at your currently active environment, finds the matching variable name, and injects that current value right into the string right before it sends the HTTP request. Let's inject these variables into our sample REST API endpoints so you can see exactly how it works. You can drop them right into your URLs to instantly swap out the workspace domain. You can put them in your headers, like injecting a bearer token so you literally never have to manually paste a massive alphanumeric string ever again. You can even wrap them in quotes inside your JSON request bodies to dynamically swap out customer IDs based on whatever environment you're in. It's super versatile and it keeps your requests looking perfectly clean. Section 4, collection versus environment variables and knowing exactly which one to use. So here is your golden rule of thumb. Use collection variables for static details that never change, regardless of where you are testing. Think of things like API versioning, like a V1 in the path. Because collection variables are completely independent of environments, they stay constant. On the flip side, use environment variables for context-specific, dynamic data that changes depending on the server you're hitting, stuff like your base URLs and your specific auth tokens.
But wait, what happens if you accidentally use the exact same variable name in both places? Well, Postman uses a strict hierarchy where the narrowest scope always wins. Because an environment scope is considered narrower, or, more specific than a collection scope, if the names match, the environment variable will safely override the broader collection variable at runtime. So you can set safe default variables at the collection level and securely override them with specific local credentials in your environment. Pretty smart, right?
Finally, Section 5, a real-world troubleshooting scenario to show you how to troubleshoot fast. Okay, imagine this. You're an IT support engineer and a high-stakes support ticket just dropped into your queue. A customer is reporting a payment failure on the live system. This is the ultimate test of our setup right here. When you're mid-incident, you do not have time to dig through documentation to find the production API URL, and you definitely don't have time to manually generate and paste production tokens. So, how do we jump straight to reproducing the error instantly without manually reconfiguring the whole workspace? Well, because we built our foundation properly, it is literally just a one-click drop-down switch. You click the environment selector in the top right, you switch from staging to production, and instantly every single variable in your public workspace updates. You open your sample REST API collection, hit the dynamic base URL payment status endpoint, and fire the request. Boom! You've instantly reproduced the failure with real data, perfectly mimicking the customer's exact context without breaking a sweat. No way you could do that so fast manually. Look at the massive difference in these workflows. On the left, you've got the old way, scrambling through docs, risking human error, and wasting critical minutes during an active outage. On the right, the modern way, automated environments that completely eliminate the friction of active incidents. You get immediate debugging context, meaning you can focus entirely on solving the customer's actual problem instead of fighting with your own tools. By mastering these fundamentals, you are transforming API testing from a total chore into an absolute superpower. You've successfully eliminated environment drift for yourself, but I want to leave you with this final proactive thought. How much time could your entire support team save by standardizing these exact environments today? Just imagine the compounding efficiency if every single engineer had this immediate one-click context at their fingertips. That is the true power of Postman environments. So go standardize your workspaces. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy troubleshooting.